Ready? Okay, I'd like to call to order the January 3rd, 2024 City Council meeting to order. If you're able, please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sonart.
Here.
Vice Mayor Naxted.
Here.
Councilmember Dothit.
Here.
Councilmember Baisden.
Here.
Councilmember Askin.
Here.
Councilmember Daniel.
Here.
Student Representative Tanner.
Here.
Mayor Gabriel is absent tonight. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Now we have approval of the agenda, consent agenda, and we have no laydowns. The pleasure of council. Do you have a motion?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
And the consent agenda, you want both?
And the consent agenda.
A second.
Okay, the motion was made and seconded. Are there any additional revisions to the agenda or consent agenda from the council?
I'd ask for unanimous.
I have unanimous consent. Would the clerk please read into the consent agenda items into the record?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Naxted. Approval of the regular meeting minutes of December 20th, 2023, brought to you by the City Clerk. New business, action approval, bills to be ratified, brought to you by the administration. Action approval, non-objection to the renewal of a marijuana product manufacturing facility license and a standard marijuana cultivation license for Red Run Cannabis Cultivators, LLC, doing business as Red Run Cannabis Cultivators, LLC, license number 19372 and 10052, and a retail marijuana store license for Red Run Cannabis Company, LLC, doing business as Red Run Cannabis Company, LLC, license number 10056, brought to you by the City Clerk. Action approval, non-objection to the renewal of a retail marijuana store license and a standard marijuana cultivation license for Majestic Gardens, LLC, doing business as Majestic Gardens, LLC, license number 15393 and 15395, brought to you by the City Clerk. Introduction of ordinance number 3385-2024, accepting and appropriating a donation to the Kenai Community Library for the purchase of library materials and software for room and event scheduling. Software, brought to you by the administration. Public hearing on January 17th, 2024. Introduction of ordinance number 3386-2024, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the general fund and municipal roadway improvement capital fund to conduct an assessment of city street lighting. Brought to you by the administration. Public hearing on January 17th, 2024. And introduction of ordinance number 3387-2024, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the general fund and public work department street division professional service budget to review and update the city roadway improvement standards. Brought to you by the administration. Public hearing on January 17th, 2024, and that is your consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. Are there any public comments on any of the consent agenda items just read by the clerk? Is there anybody online that?
Anyone online who would like to comment, press star 9 to raise your hands. There are no hands raised.
Okay, seeing none, unanimous consent was requested. Are there any objections? Hearing no objections, the agenda and consent agenda is approved. We have no scheduled administrative reports. We have no scheduled public comments. So that brings us now to unscheduled public comments. Are there any members from the public who would like to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? Amanda, come forward. You know the drill.
Samantha Springer from the Kenai Chamber. I just wanted to give you guys a little update. I'm working on the facility management service review for the year, and I'm happy to announce that we had 22,451 visitors during 2023. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I'll have a full report for everybody. I'm hoping by the next meeting, because I'll get it out to Terry first and then be able to distribute it. And then just a reminder, some new things going on this month. On January 11th, we're going to be doing the Community Business Lecture Series on public speaking. Those are going to be monthly events that are free to members, and then there's a charge for general public who want to attend, but it's actually a lot cheaper if somebody just wanted to do an individual membership, and then they could do all of them and save $550. Just a slight promotion there. Also, on January 23rd, we're going to do a free family movie night. The Super Mario Brothers will be playing at the Chamber for all the public to attend from 6 to 8. And then we are having a membership appreciation day on January 29th during the afternoon for a couple hours so that people can swing in during their lunch breaks. So, and we're just busy wrapping everything up from 2023. So that's my update.
Any questions of Samantha? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public would like to speak? Marion Nelson.
Kenai Arts Center. I passed out this little paper right here that describes the show that is up for this month. I haven't even seen it. I haven't been over there. I haven't been at the Art Center outside of answering questions about the shoveling and the snow. This is a first. Feels Like Home is a program that maybe some of you are familiar with. It has to do with kids who don't have places to call home or to go. And some of you can probably speak to this better than I can. But anyway, what it amounts to is the artwork that's hung for the show this month. The sale of that, of those pieces of artwork, the Art Center, the artist will be paid whatever they're asking, and then the commission from that would go to this program. It's not like it's going to individual students, it's going to the Feels Like Home program. And you can read through the list here, that some of the things that qualify kids to be a part of that. Essentially, they're couch surfing or whatever the situation is. So anyway, that's just a FYI thing. We've had our usual snow problems like everybody has this last month, and dealing with our, relatively speaking, new storage shed in the back side of the building and how we are dealing with the snow around that for the first time. Of course, it's all doable, but when it's the first time, you gotta figure it out. And we have a donated snowblower, but we haven't used it before. So anyway, that sort of thing is happening, as well as dealing with this stuff, the physical stuff in the building. Any questions from anybody? Nothing. Henry, you don't have a question?
I've got lots, but I don't have enough time.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Marion. Anybody else in the audience here or online?
For those of you online, press *9 to raise your hand if you would like to address the council. There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So moving on down the line, that brings us to public hearings. The first public hearing before us tonight is Ordinance 3383, 2023, amending the official zoning map by rezoning all parcels within the Letzing 1985 subdivision plat number 85-55 and government lot 170 from general commercial to suburban residential zoning district. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Baisden.
I move to enact ordinance 3383, 2033, or 2023, I'm sorry.
I second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to ordinance 3383, 2023? Is there anybody online, clerk?
Thank you. Ms. Nancy Wiles has raised her hand.
I'd like to thank the City Council and in particular Lena Mitchell for all the hard work done in getting this approved. I don't know when it was ever changed from being commercial when we bought the house in 1985, but I do appreciate your time and effort. Thank you.
Thank you for the testimony. Is there anybody, if you wouldn't mind, is there anybody that might have a question of Ms. Wiles? Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much. Is there anybody else that may want to speak?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no one else, we'll bring it back to council. Discussion from council.
I would just like to say I was present at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting when they took this on and forwarded it on to us, and I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a kind of a odd loophole where it's at to have commercial right next to some residential there, and to go back to residential defeats a good purpose. And I think this opens up a lot of quality lot space. And if you saw the packet, it sounds like there's going to be some more residential homes being built at a reasonable rate. Sounds like is the plan for the construction to take place on this new lot. And I think it cleans some stuff up and makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a great idea.
Anybody else? I'd just like to say that I agree with Councilmember Doffett that that area that I am familiar with, and it's surrounded by other residential areas, and I think that'll fit in. If there's no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Nakstad,
Yes.
Councilmember Dothett,
Yes.
Councilmember Baisden,
Yes.
Councilmember Askin,
Yes.
Councilmember Daniel,
Yes.
Councilmember Sonart,
Yes.
Student Representative Tanner.
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes. Ordinance number 3383, 2023 is enacted.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we're on to item E2, Ordinance 3384, 2023, canceling previously approved projects, authorizing transfer of funds from the Wastewater Facility Capital Project Fund to the Water and Sewer Capital Project Fund, and appropriating supplemental funds for the construction of a new water pump house at the city's water treatment facility, brought to us by administration. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Baisden.
I would move to enact ordinance 3384, 2023.
I will second.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to ordinance 3384, 2023?
For those online, press *9 to raise your hand, or the raise your hand button.
Nope. Okay, seeing no one, we'll bring it back to council for discussion. Council? Councilmember Baisden.
Maybe not a discussion, but just a quick overview from the city manager.
Thank you, Councilmember Baisden, through the Vice Mayor. So, Council, if just to bring back up a little bit of history here, on August 1st, the city received notice of we qualified or were awarded a $1.2 million loan from the Alaska Drinking Water Fund. That's the state's revolving loan fund for drinking water projects. That loan came with 100% forgiveness clause, which to me makes it sound like that's a grant and not a loan, but it is being deemed a loan. We worked with bond counsel to try to avoid the debt provisions of it, and chartered a path in which the city would forward fund construction of the project, seek reimbursement from the state through this fund only upon completion of the project, and by receiving funds and then 100% loan forgiveness at the same time, the city will not be incurring debt. In order to facilitate funding of the $1.2 million, we've put on hold or postponed some projects that we originally funded. If you looked at our last year's capital plan, this pump house was our #1 priority, but it was contingent upon receiving some grant funding or a funding source. We've done that, so we're going to put it as our #1 priority, pull these other projects back, and complete this. So with this, we will start formal design, which we already have a good significant portion of this design done. It's going to need to be updated. The design was actually completed when the actual construction of the water treatment facility occurred. It had this in the design. It wasn't built at that time because of funding. But, so we just have to polish off that design, and hopefully we'll be in construction late this year. So this provides, like I said, with the canceling of a few projects, redirecting that funding to this project, and a little bit of funds from the Water and Sewer Fund. We'll have $1.2 million to complete this project, and it eventually receiving 100% loan forgiveness from the state.
Any questions of the city manager? Councilmember Daniel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a quick question on those projects we're postponing. Is the intention to pick them up when we receive the funds back from the state, or we'll just cross the bridge when we get there and look for other uses of the funds?
Hey, thank you, Councilmember Daniels, and through the Vice Mayor. Yes, that is our intent. I think along with all of our projects, what we will do is we will reevaluate our priorities at that time. But, most of those projects there still is a need for, and they likely will be revisited at a later date.
Anything else? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dothit,
Yes.
Councilmember Baisden,
Yes.
Councilmember Askin,
Yes.
Councilmember Daniel,
Yes.
Councilmember Sonart,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nakstad,
Yes.
Student Representative Tanner.
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes. Ordinance number 3384, 2023 is enacted.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have item E3, Resolution 2024-01, approving the use of the Fleet Replacement Fund for the purchase of 2 Ford police responders utilizing the State of Alaska Equipment Fleet contract. This is brought to us by administration. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Askin.
I move that we approve Resolution 2024-01.
Second?
Okay, we have a second. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to Resolution 2024-01?
For those attending through Zoom, if you'd like to speak, raise your hand by pressing the *9 button or the raise your hand button. There are no hands raised.
Not seeing anybody. Back to council for discussion. Councilmember Basin.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Maybe for the city manager or the police chief, are these going to be additional units for the police force, or are we replacing? And I probably see that here. It does say replacement, doesn't it? Okay, so. We keep the police chief turned off for a reason?
Through the Vice Mayor, Councilor Basin, they are a replacement. We have a set number of vehicles we're just replacing.
Just to follow up, if I could, 4-wheel drive units, cars, what are we talking about? Maybe give us a little detail, if you would, just for the public.
Councilor Basin, these are pickup trucks. Our fleet replacement plan that we worked on a few years ago calls for the police department, I think, to have 5 or 6 total as we go through this of pickup trucks. And the goal is to rotate them out at some point to other departments, is why we were going with more trucks. So they are 4-wheel drive, they are pickup trucks, and we are using 3 now. So that's what they are.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Daniel.
Yes, quick question could be for our police chief or city manager, depending. Are they fully equipped, outfitted, ready to go once we get them, or do we have to do any other additional upfitting for those units?
Through the Vice Mayor, Councilor Daniel. So these are responders. They're set up with some of the wiring and electronics, but most of the upfitting will be after that. You'll see another resolution come back at some point when we figure out what exactly we need to order for those. But yeah, it's substantial. Our city shop has been installing that stuff, so it does save us some on the installation, but we do need to buy all the equipment for those vehicles.
I would ask for unanimous consent.
Okay, any further questions? Unanimous consent was requested. Are there any objections to unanimous consent? Hearing no objections to unanimous consent, the resolution 2024-01 is adopted. That brings us to item E4, resolution 2024-01, amending the authorized staffing table by adding a part-time administrative assistant 2 position to the Planning and Zoning Department, brought to us by administration. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Baisden.
I'll make the motion that we adopt resolution 2024-02.
I'll second it and ask for unanimous consent.
Very good. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to resolution 2024-02? Anybody online?
For those attending online, press *9 or the raise your hand button to raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
Okay, very good. Seeing no one else, we'll bring it back to council. Councilmember Baisden?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just maybe for our planning director, a question is, I know you've got a lot going on. How much of an improvement is this going to be for you if we can get you this position?
Thank you for the question, Council Baisden, through the Vice Mayor. Substantially. I've been here about over a year, and it's a lot with the department's roles and responsibility and the amount of detail that I think is required in this job position. It will allow me to be more focused on the long-term plans for the city and allow the staff to support me in the day-to-day stuff, because it's the day-to-day stuff that's bogging me down, and I can't focus on these comp plan and historic preservation plans, things that will allow us to be eligible for grants. So it's overdue, and I think this will really help this department out.
Thank you.
Councilmember Doffett?
Again, a question for Ms. Mitchell. Do you currently have so you currently have a part-time employee, and we're looking, this will allow you to hire for a full-time position? Is that what I was understanding?
Thank you, Councilman Dothett, and through the Vice Mayor. Yes, currently I have a part-time position. Due to just the retention of the admin position, I changed it up from a full-time admin 3 to 2 part-time admin 2s, and that's where we're at right now. But this allows me to move forward with hiring a full-time staff. So I already have a part-time staff as today.
Thank you. And I'm assuming by going full-time, hopefully we'll be able to attract more candidates showing a full-time position. Is that the hopes?
Yes. There's, going through the first round of the part-time, a lot of the candidates did express that they wished it was a full-time, but it was challenging to find a full-time staff with the experience and planning background. But maybe the season and time is different, and we're hoping that we'll get better candidates this time around.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have just a quick one for the city manager. So in our next budget cycle, we'll see a change in the staffing there to include another not half a person, but half a day, half a part-time person. 1.5.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. I think that's something we were trying to highlight through this, is that, one, I want to acknowledge that this is, for me, I believe this is a little bit of an unusual request. I think traditionally we try to bring these forward during budget time and for budget consideration. Because of the staffing where we are right now, and we currently have a vacancy, we thought it was prudent to bring this forward at this time, not only to try to help reduce workload for the planning department, but also, we didn't want to get in a situation where we now had to wait through attrition or disrupt an employee or lay an employee off. So that kind of was the impetus for bringing it forward at this time. The reason this is being highlighted is that, yes, this is one of those that it will be a reoccurring cost to the city. It is the equivalent of adding a half-time FTE. So the department, while it says down here the planning director is a 0.7, that's because part of our time is allocated to the airport. So the department will have a 2.5 FTE equivalent if this goes forward. The estimated cost, if this would have been in place, On the FY24 budget would have been an additional $27,000 annually. And we expect that to be a reoccurring cost, and, you know, it's subject to growth, just like all of the rest of our personnel costs. But this is one of those that it is going to, it's multi-year.
Councilmember Dothett.
Thank you for the explanation, and I agree with Linda too. I believe that by hiring for a full-time position and not advertising for a part-time position, usually when you tend to hire for full-time positions and advertise for full-time positions, you get a different level of employees putting in for it when they know it's a full-time year-round position. And I think this should help, hopefully, get us a higher level of candidates for that too.
Anything, any more questions, comments? Unanimous consent was requested. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, hearing no objections to unanimous consent, Resolution 2024-01 is adopted. So that gets us down to new business. Item H7, an action approval authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Kenai Peninsula Borough to accept landfill leachate as at the wastewater treatment plant, brought to us by administration. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Baisden.
Is this, do we need to enact this or adopt this with it being in action?
Need a motion.
A motion to adopt? I'd make the motion to adopt to authorize the city manager to enter into the agreement with the Kenai Peninsula to adopt the landfill leachate from the borough.
Second.
Okay. And catch up here. We do have Lee Fry with us tonight. If we have any questions, he is the solid waste director for the Kenai Peninsula Borough. In case we had some questions that Terry might not be able to answer. Are there any questions? Pardon me? Well, we don't have public on this one, but actually we don't usually take public hearing. But since he's here, we could bring him forward as an expert.
I do have a question for him. I guess I'll let him come up.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome to stand or sit, whatever you feel more comfortable with there, Mr. Fry. Okay. Councilmember Dothett.
I guess one would be, I guess it's twofold. One, how is the product going to be taken to the facility? I'm assuming by tanker of some sort. And then also, why the city of Kenai, not the city of Soldotna? Would it be closer for them to go to Soldotna versus Kenai or not?
Yeah, sure. So we're looking at putting a term contract out to bid to hire a hauler to be our contract that would be hauling the leachate to the city of Kenai. We've been working with Scott Curtin and Eric down at your wastewater treatment plant on figuring out the best way to do all that in terms and conditions and all the good stuff. But essentially we're looking at using some sort of a pump truck. There's different options the way they can load it, but we'd just be looking at an unload into a manhole. So it'll probably be about 5,000 gallons at a time we'd be picking up and hauling daily over here. And the second question was treatment. So we've approached City of Soldotna about it because they discharge into the Kenai River versus the City of Kenai discharges into Cook Inlet. They have pretty different regulations. City of Soldotna's regulations for wastewater discharge are much more stringent than City of Kenai's are for here. So they'd probably be able to, if they took any, it would be significantly lower amounts that they'd be able to take due to possible changes in their water chemistry for their permit.
Councilmember Baisden.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So just for the public, I understand what this is. What is leachate? And why does it have to be disposed of? And why is it, you said, I think 5,000 gallons a day? And how long is that 5,000 gallons a day? Is that every day? Is that once a week? How often?
So leachate is basically any water that touches the trash at the landfill. So we have big cells that are essentially like bathtubs. It's lined holes in the ground, so any water, precipitation, snow melt that hits that trash and gets down through it becomes what's called leachate. So anything that it's going through and absorbing while it's going through the trash becomes leachate. There can be not great things in there. So right now what we have is a leachate concentrator that essentially we take that leachate, put it into super hot container with natural gas that we're heating it. We're burning off about 90% of what goes in there. 10% it comes back in a concentrated slurry that we put back into the waste mass. So we're kind of just reducing the volume as we can. Our unit was installed in 2014, and we're looking at replacing it this summer. We've already purchased the new unit that's going to be shipping up here this spring. So we need to shut down our existing unit, pull it out, swap the new one in. So the goal is that we're trying to catch up on inventory here by doing some hauling operations and trying to keep everything running through the winter. And then we can shut down where we won't have any disposal capabilities while we're shut down. So we'll be able to put the new unit in, which is 2.5 times bigger than our existing unit. And then we're hoping to fire that one up and start catching back up on inventory. So volumes, yeah, the agreement we've been talking about with Scott and Eric has been 5,000 gallons a day. We'd be looking to do that 7 days a week, so 35,000 gallons a week. I think Scott said that's probably about 2% or less than 2% of the volume that regular comes into the City of Kenai treatment system. And City of Kenai used to take leachate from the landfill for disposal. It's a pretty common process around the U.S. for leachate to be treated biologically through wastewater treatment plants. So this is just the direction the borough went, was to use the concentrator for leachate disposal in 2014, and we're kind of moving on with that route, but trying to catch up as our undersized equipment and get ahead of the game.
Councilmember Dothett.
So this is just a temporary contract, 6 months to a year, or is this going to be a long term?
So we're doing a term contract for hauling for a year. It could be, depending. We're hoping that everything goes well and we're able to keep doing it for a little while. If everything goes well with our new unit, I would hope that, we'll be able to just process it ourselves and not haul it. Our goal would be to try and keep a relationship in place so that if something happened, we had, some catastrophic failure of our equipment, that we'd still be able to use the City of Kenai for disposal of leachate. DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, wants us to have those agreements in place so that we have alternate methods of disposal. And that's just, things that we're looking forward to try and do. We are currently hauling to City of Homer right now. They're taking 15,000 gallons a week from us and haven't been having any impacts with their plant at this point. We've been hauling for 2.5 months, I think. Yep.
Go ahead, Mr. Beasley.
Just another comment. Wasn't the unit originally damaged by the earthquake? Is that what my memory took place? Was that what happened?
No, we had a tank, leachate tank was down there that was damaged by the earthquake that we had some repairs done with.
Thanks.
Do you have a comment, City Manager?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want to point out a couple things to council I think are key in this agreement. One, I think our expectation at this point is to start slow at 5,000 gallons per day, and we're going to evaluate how that affects our plant. Like Lee did say, I think both Mr. Curtin and our wastewater treatment plant foreman believe it shouldn't be a significant impact at such a low dose into our system. This agreement does give us the ability to increase to up to 10,000 gallons a day, which is right at about 2% of our daily flow. The other thing that this does is it gives the city the ability to cease taking leachate at any time if it becomes detrimental to our system or has negative impacts on the operation of the plant. We did get confirmation from DEC. They are on board. Like Mr. Fry did say, this is a common way to deal with leachate. And the only stipulation that DEC put on it is that we must maintain compliance with our discharge permit, which we test for every day. So I think it's a relatively safe agreement for us. And I think, we're all part of the borough here, and if we can help them out and not negatively impact our system. We do expect some increased costs for some chemical costs, but the 10 cents a gallon fee that this agreement carries should be more than adequate to deal with any increased costs the city has.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dothett?
I just one other question on the leachate. Is it considered a placard load when you guys are hauling that? Just for curious.
No, it's not.
Thank you.
Councilmember Baisden?
No comment, but I'd ask for unanimous consent.
I do have a question on the leachate, and for either of you, is it going to be tested periodically? Do we know what we're receiving? I assume the concentrations change. I don't know what the biological oxygen demand is, and any of that.
So we do a test. We only do a test annually on the leachate that does a wide variety of sampling for a bunch of different analytes. But Eric and Scott came and took multiple samples and ran some bench testing with some BOSD's tests. Right now, we're pulling out of our lagoon that we have. We're not adding to it at this point. We've got about 1 million gallons sitting out there in an open lagoon. So we're pulling out of that. So it's fairly consistent that we're not adding new leachate to it from the cells. So there probably will be a point if we run for a long time that level does get drawn down and the pump trucks need to fill back up for them to draw. But at this point, it's going to be a fairly consistent material. So as long as it's not causing any issues up front, it shouldn't really change on them.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Fry? If I could ask one more question to the city manager, this leachate is going to be placed into into a manhole. I was wondering if that's going to be down at the treatment plant, or is it going to be upstream at some other general location?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. It will be at another location. We try to do it further upstream to allow the dilution of the normal waste coming into the system to help dilute it before it hits the plant.
Perfect. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, unanimous consent was requested. Are there any objections? Hearing no objections to unanimous consent, the memorandum of agreement is approved. So that gets us down to commission committee reports. Council on Aging, Councilmember Baisden.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I was just notified, I think it's not official yet, but the Council on Aging meeting that was scheduled for the 11th of this month will be moved to the 18th, and I think that notice will be sent out for this tomorrow. That's all I've got to report.
Thank you. I have the Airport Commission meeting, and that will be next Thursday. That's the 11th here at 6 o'clock. No other report on that. Harbor Commission, Councilmember Askin.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Nagstead. The Harbor Commission meeting will be held January 8th with a work session beginning at 5 p.m., followed by the meeting at 6.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation Commission, Member Sonart.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Nagstead. Parks and Rec is our meeting tomorrow night. They have a workshop and then their regularly scheduled meeting at 6.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning Commission, Councilmember Dothett.
I was not present for that one. I was out of town, and I completely forgot to ask somebody to cover for me, so I will be at the next one, though. I did get a text message when I was on the beach from Mr. Twait to remind me. But
Okay, that brings us down to the Beautification Committee. Councilmember Daniel.
Yes, so we got a work session coming up on the 9th of January, followed by the meeting at 6.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us to item J, report of the mayor. The mayor did not provide me with any mayor notes. So we'll just skip on past that. To administrative reports. City Manager.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, members of council. First of all, I think I'd just like to wish everybody a Happy New Year. Excited for 2024. I'd also take a minute. It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Heather Schaefer. Ms. Schaefer is a graduate student at Southeast Missouri University. She's getting her master's in public administration. As part of that program, they do an internship, and she contacted my office to see if she could potentially do that internship with us. I believe you're currently employed with the Kenaitze Indian Tribe, and so she's here locally, and I thought it would be a great opportunity for the city to, get some exposure to, potential folks that work in government and are seeking degrees in that work. So welcome, Heather. Looking forward to it. And that'll be this next semester that we're going to be working on our internship. Give you a quick update. I didn't have exciting news for council on December 29th. I hope that maybe that just slipped by, but the Bluff Erosion Project was supposed to bid on the 29th. The Corps did extend the bid period till January 11th. So we'll should know something around the 11th. I'm not exactly sure their evaluation process, but they do close now on January 11th. Administration is working with the Kenaitze Indian Tribe to finalize the agenda for our January 18th joint meeting. And it was nice today. Both the airport manager, Derek, and I met with some representatives from Grant Aviation. Just wanted to come down and talk with the city about Grant's plans and Grant's activities. I think you probably saw locally in the news, Grant has recently acquired 2 additional 208 aircraft. That's the same aircraft that's predominant in their fleet. Both those aircraft are going to be dedicated to the Kenai to Anchorage schedule. That will bring Grant's capacity back up to about their 2019 operational level, which I think is going to provide good service here for the community. Another thing to note about those 2 aircraft that they wanted to point out to us too is that they're both equipped with some de-icing equipment on those aircraft, which will make the likelihood of icing cancellations when they have to fly over water, like they do over the Arm when they go to Anchorage. It really will diminish the opportunity for that. So it should also make their scheduled service much more reliable too. But it was good to meet with them and talk with them, and I think they're exactly what we at the city look for when we work with our facilities, and the folks that operate in our facilities is they're looking for a partnership with the city, and we stress that that's what we're looking for too, and we're happy that they're having good success here at the airport. I would say this, just for council's information, we did have some vandalism at the multi-purpose facility. It's a hockey rink. Generally, the rink is open basically 24 hours a day. The availability for anybody to go and skate. Periodically, we do have these situations where we have some vandalism. Our typical practice in the past has been we close the facility down outside of rented hours for about a 1-week period. And it really has been effective in the past at quashing that vandalism. I think that it helps the users over there start policing themselves a little bit better. So that closure is just getting ready to end. So if you've heard some concerns or comments about the rink being closed, it was closed to try to deal or put the brakes on some vandalism we were experiencing. And I do expect that it will go back to normal operations. So with that, I don't have any more comments, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the city manager? Thank you, Terry. Seeing none, city attorney?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Naxted, members of council. I don't have anything to report, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody's got any.
Seeing none, that takes us to the city clerk's report.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Nexted. Just to give a quick update in response to the recent survey from commissions, we will be Friday afternoon having a training session with all of our new to Kenai boards and commissions training. And then tomorrow we kick off our board and commission orientation with the Parks and Rec meeting, our first one, and there'll be a bunch of them in the next 2 weeks. And that is my report, available for questions.
Any questions of the clerk? Seeing none, that gets us down to item L, additional public comments. Are there any Any members of the public who would like to address the city council at this time? Anybody online?
For those online, press star 9 or the raise your hand button to raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So that gets us to council comments. Council member, we'll start down at the end. Council member Dothett.
Glad to be back, I guess, but it was a great trip, and looking forward to getting to work with all these new commissioners and seeing how everything goes.
Student Representative Tanner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All the schools are coming out of their winter break, so there isn't a whole lot to report, but for Connections, they're going through their MAP testing right now, and they will have a parent advisory committee meeting on January 17th. For Kenai Central High School, on January 4th through 5th, there will be boys and girls basketball, and they'll be playing against Nilchik and Homer High Schools. On January 5th, there will be co-ed hockey at SoHi. On January 6th, there will be cross-country skiing at Homer High School. On January 8th, the boys and girls will play basketball versus Homer High School. On January 10th, girls and boys will be playing basketball against Soldotna High School and Bethel High School. January 12th through 13th, there will be hockey at Kodiak High School. On January 15th, the boys and girls will be playing basketball versus Nikiski High School. And for Kenai Alternative High School, they had nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sonart.
Thank you. Just Happy New Year, everyone.
Councilmember Askin.
Thank you. Also, Happy New Year.
Wow, I don't know if I can follow those. I guess I'll say it too. Happy New Year. No, I just wanted to thank city staff for presenting some those budget considerations. Look forward to working with them more as we get through that process. And in regards to the hockey rink and the multipurpose facility, it is heavily used after hours, during non-minute hours. And so, although it is a bummer, I do believe it will be self-resolving soon. There's a lot of kids that are itching to get out there, and hopefully we can get that vandalism tampered down and get that figured out. So thank you for having that facility for use. It's really a benefit to the community.
It is. Councilmember Baisden.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Good budget work session to start with. Thanks to the administration for that. Good meeting, Vice Mayor. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year. And having no other business before the body, we are adjourned.
Goodbye.